Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 3023-3-601. This is what the hinge looks like in its native sort of condition. Okay, let's dissect the part number a bit first of all. The 3023 is a bit of a atypical double-acting spring hinge. The 3029 from Bommer is the industry standard double-acting spring hinge. But the 3023 means that it's half surface. It means that the leaf that is attached to the door is surface mounted. Why you would use that? Well, in this client's case, you're using a quite unusually thin door, like a piece of half-inch plywood. Okay, is why they're using that. And there's really no option for a double-acting hinge like this on such a thin door because the location of the screw holes is not at all correct for something so thin. So the 3023 is going to be used for 3/4 to 1 inch thick material, and that's because the door is going to fit inside of here. This client that I'm speaking of, this door is obviously going to only occupy part of the pocket that's here. So the 3023 is a double-acting spring hinge, except for a half-surface installation. Your door fits in here. This leaf is going to go out, and then when it comes back and stops, then all of this moves to allow the double-acting sort of procedure. Okay, that's how that works. The -3 is a reference to the size. The 3-inch is, and there is a link below this video to a document called Template, and that will show you all of the dimensional properties of the hinge. Really nowhere on there is 3-inch. The point of the matter is 3 inches really a reference to the thickness range of door that the hinge will accommodate. And a 3-inch and a 3023 means 3/4 to half-inch thick doors. The -601, that means two things. That means that the hinge is made of steel and that the finish is what's called black japanned or bright black japanned. It's a black hinge, very common and typical sort of finish that you're going to see. This is a non-handed hinge. It can be used either way that you like. It will operate correctly. This is going to be for doors of at least 5 foot in height. You can use it on smaller stuff, but what they're trying to convey with that is, you know, there are some not insignificant springs in here. If you had something quite light installed on the door, you know, this is not really the right hinge because it's too much hinge for the project. Maximum door weight, 35 pounds if you're using 2 hinges. And if you get above that, go with 3 spring hinges, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Maximum door width, 2 foot for 2 hinges, and then 2'8" or 32-inch for 3 hinges. Door flange is surface applied to the face of the door. Jamb flange is surface mounted to the face of the jamb, or the cased opening frame. Okay. That hinge just mounts just like you think it would. This leaf is going to be literally surface mounted right to the cased opening frame. Bommer is providing all wood screws. They're assuming that it's all wood, what you're doing. Okay, in a complementary finish. You would not have any bevel on the edges of the doors, or at least, certainly not on the leading edge door. These are made for square edge sorts of doors, and if it ought to be square edge over here too, so the door can sit all the way back against this flange. Anything beveled and the door will not sit properly. Okay, so square edge doors permits the door to open in either direction and automatically return to the closed position, provides maximum protection for doors subject to normal abuse of lift trucks due to resiliency of spring support and shock absorbing reaction of flexible mounting. Adjustable spring tension power permits some control over the speed of the door itself. No hanging strip is required. A hanging strip is a reference to a piece of additional material that you would need on the jamb in order to get this properly hung and working. This again just mounts right to the flat cased opening frame. Now let's get into the let's look at that template again. So the template gives you all of the important dimensional properties of the hinge. It's important to know just so that you have an understanding of what you're dealing with in terms of how large the hinge is. Now what you'll notice is you have the important thing to know is that 9/32 of an inch dimension that they give you of these two leaf of the jamb leaf, okay, and this portion of the hinge, so that you know how you're undersizing the door. So 9/32, that's just heavy on a 1/4 inch. So keep that in mind. You're losing just heavy on a 1/4 inch here. Now, what they don't really tell you is what to undersize the door in total for the operation of this hinge to work properly. And you've got a cased opening frame and a square edge door. You need to make sure that it's going to operate correctly inside the frame. So therefore, some pre-fit's going to be required. Now, technically, depending on the door thickness, the amount of gap that you need using a square edge door, those are related, those mathematical values. If you're already undersizing at 9/32 of an inch and you use that same value for the other side, you're going to find that it will operate just correctly. You'll have enough room. So you're, in the range of undersizing the door, 9/32 times 2 is what it is. So 18/32, so you're literally at 9/16 of an inch, not 1 and, but about 9/16 of an inch. Okay, and that would work just great. Be super. What will happen then is your margin will be consistent on both sides, and give you a consistent look. Now you can decrease that margin, quite frankly, all the way down to about a 1/16 of an inch. Not that you would, but an 1/8 of an inch. If you were to radius this leading edge of the door down, that's unusual to do in an application like this with a 3-inch Bommer double acting half surface hinge used for 3/4 or 1 inch doors. But if you were to radius it, you could reduce that margin down. I can't think of a solid reason for you having to do that. Where you're going to see these sorts of hinges is in tiny half doors that are going to separate the public area from the cash wrap in a gas station. You'll see them all the time, or coffee shops, you'll see these all the time. Not high critical tolerance sorts of applications. It's not fine furniture woodworking that's occurring here. So given that fact, that's why the lack of specific outline in terms of how to pre-fit your door is omitted really from the template. So using that 9/32, I would use it on both sides. I would make my size uniform for the door, and then go from there. Or if you're dealing with a door size and you're going to build a jamb around it, you'll work in reverse. Take your net door side, add your margins, and create your frame. Now, there's also a link, 2 links. One is called Installation Instructions, and the other is called Technical Specifications. Let's look at the technical specifications first. What they're really showing you is in an overview sort of fashion what this is supposed to look like, what I tried to demonstrate earlier. It's very simple, very straightforward. The important things on here to take away is if you are installing this as a pair of doors, you'll note in the lower third of the page how they want you to turn the hinge over if you're using it on the other side. Okay? These are called tension collars. So if these are pointed up on a pair of doors on one side, they want them pointed down on the other side. That's the important thing to take note there. It's a better operating and acting and centering sort of way to install these hinges. They also show which direction to turn the tension rod when you are setting the tension, which we'll get into in the installation instructions. Remove spring tension from each barrel by inserting the tension rod into the tension adjustment hole rotate in the direction of the arrow, and there are indeed arrows on these. It's clockwise as you are looking at the hinge with the tension collar pointed towards the top. When the hinge shifts, there is no tension set on these at all. For every order that you place, you're going to get at least one tension rod. It's down here in the box. You get at least one. You're going to insert that into the tension hole and then turn it clockwise. And as you reveal new additional holes, that's where you're going to insert one of the tension pins. And for every hinge, you need 2 tension pins. Okay, because you have 2 tension collars. And that's how you go about setting the tension. But the diagram is there is specifically showing you how to go about doing that. Now, also what's important, it says locate hinges as shown in figure 1, and I'm in the upper right hand corner, step number 2. You'll see that if you're doing 3 hinges on a door, they want the top 2 right at the top. That's because that's where all the weight of the door is happening. That's where the majority of force is wanting to take that door and have it to lean right out into the opening. And if you don't have adequate tension set on the hinge, or you don't have enough spring hinges to properly keep the door plumb, your door will actually oval in its arc, because that door is actually leaving the opening a little bit, and you could have a condition where the door is going to hit the frame or hit the other door, and you'll notice that immediately, obviously. So be cautious as you begin to test your door. So 3 inches from the top of the door to the first hinge, and then 2 or 3 inches between the two. You'll obviously always have at least 2 hinges. If you have a third hinge, you'll mount it right below the top of the first hinge. For best alignment on double doors, mount hinges on one door with the tension adjustment up and down on the opposite door as shown in figure 1. Shims may be necessary under the edges of the frame flanges for door alignment. You might have a very minor amount of lack of alignment based on where you install the doors. You might have to tip that in or out a little bit by inserting shims underneath the hinge leaf at some point. That will also be quite obvious. Spring tension instructions: do not exceed 5 holes of tension. What that means is as you are turning this clockwise, you're seeing new holes. Don't go more than 5 holes past. It'll be far too much tension set on the hinge. Okay. When place the door in the closed position, wedge the door up from the floor until it's plumb. Insert the tension rod into the tension adjustment hole, or the tension collar. Rotate in the direction of the arrow as shown on the hinge barrel, that's for sure. Only one hole of tension is recommended for the bottom hinge. It's those top hinges or hinge that's doing most of the work. And then test. Increase the tension on the top hinge if the door sags or the return action is too slow. You're going to want to do that obviously equally among the 2 springs. The balance of this document called technical specifications, we've exhausted all that's really important there to see. Now moving on to the installation instructions, it's a regurgitation of everything that we just discussed, showing where to locate the hinges. That's it. There's really nothing else new that's there whatsoever. The only thing you have to know with the Bommer spring hinges is how thick is your door. That's going to dictate the size of the hinge that you use. 30/29 is the industry standard for this. Then of course your door thickness. Then once you know the thickness of your door, you can determine how many hinges to purchase. I'm a fan of buying more hinges than you think that you will need. It's unusual to have 4 on a door, but that has been done in the past. But quite frankly, that's when you're using the hinge outside of what it was made to do. Although Bommer is a notoriously over-engineered sort of product. So once you know the thickness, determine the quantity of hinges. Obviously, you need to know the finish that you want. Bommer will do lots of finishes. Your chromes, your brasses, bronze, nickel, zinc, prime, black japanned, that's the 601, oil rubbed finish, things of that nature. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up the full line Bommer product catalog and review all things Bommer hinge related. They make their name is synonymous with the double acting hinge, but they make a full complement of single acting hinges, exquisite lavatory hardware, and commercial hinges as well. If you have any questions on the Bommer 3023-3-601 or any other Bommer products, please feel free to reach out to us. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo. Right above it, it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. Thank you very much.